And then you rode away on a what? A snowboarding battle ostrich. Huh. Well, that seemed like a pretty eventful afternoon. Oh, hey guys. Sorry about that. Uka was just telling me about this really interesting story. But don't worry, we're going to do something far more interesting for this video. We're going to talk about philosophy. Okay, so I should probably mention, like I have a couple times in the past, as impressive as my brain may look, ultimately I am still a novice in the world of philosophy. Now, I still share my philosophical ideologies in hopes that, as novice as they may be, that people can still benefit from them, as well as encouraging myself to continue to grow in the world of philosophy and hopefully get some feedback on my concepts from other people. But again, ultimately, I am a novice in the world of philosophy. With that said, I did want to make my argument for a certain controversial topic. And granted, when I say controversial, I don't mean toxic, like most of the time it turns out to be on the internet. When I've had conversations about this topic with other people, generally they're pretty civil, and we can have a rather lively debate that I rather enjoy. But it is a topic that seems to bring some point of contention as to whether it's true or not. And that is truth itself. Is it relative, or is there an objective truth? Well, I personally want to argue that there is such a thing as an objective truth. Now, one thing you often hear people say is, well, the truth is generally determined by whatever culture you're in or whoever is more or less dictating the situation. So let's say, for instance, there was a culture that found it acceptable to decapitate anybody who liked pineapple pizza. Clearly, this was the most evil culture to ever exist in the history of all of time. But let's say, just for argument's sake, this godforsaken culture actually did exist. Then the argument would be, well, because they said it was okay, then truth is relative. Because they said it's okay, and everybody agrees it's okay, therefore it's okay. Well, it's a valid argument, but my argument is, just like in science, simply because everybody believes it to be the truth doesn't mean it's actually the truth. I'll give you an example. Okay, so a long, long time ago, not in a galaxy far, far away, unless you're an alien, in which case it might have been in a galaxy far, far away in reference to you, in which case, please subscribe, alien people. But a long time ago, we used to believe there's only 4 elements. Now we know that there's more than 4, okay? There's a lot more than 4. Now, everybody believed at the time that there was only 4 elements. But that didn't make it true. It's not like the laws of physics and laws of physics and chemistry morphed to fit the belief of everybody. They just had the best information they had, made the conclusion, and then as we got more information, did more experiments, we learned that there are not 4 elements, there's a bunch more, and on top of that, the original 4 elements weren't actually elements at all. And it's similar with philosophy. Yes, in this culture, right, where they decapitate people who eat pineapple pizzas, they might all think it's true. They might all think that it's objectively what you should be doing. But that doesn't mean that it is objectively what you should be doing. I mean, just imagine if somebody was doing something morally wrong and we couldn't criticize them because the culture or subculture had decided that was morally right. I mean, look, if we can make an argument and prove to some degree that what they're doing is morally wrong, then we should be able to call them out on it. Now, the other thing that you might be thinking, well, what about things that are individualized per person? We can't really come up with like a blanket thing that everybody should do for these weird individual scenarios. And that's true. I mean, for instance, take careers. We can't really have everybody doing the same career just because that one career is objectively morally right. A, I don't think such a career exists. And B, that'd be the most inefficient society ever to exist. So you might think, well, can there be objective truth in that scenario? Yeah, of course. The thing is that we kind of have to come up with an objective moral truth, or not come up with, but more try to prove an objective moral truth that can apply more or less to everybody, or that changes with reason to each individual scenario. So take the career thing, for instance. Perhaps you could say, well, you can choose whatever career you want. You just need to make sure morally that A, it's something that you enjoy and you can become better at. B, it's something not for the sake of you need to do everything for everybody else, but you should probably choose a career that will at least add to the community that you're in, because you are part of the community. And that's more or less it. And at that point, you can say, okay, I can follow that objective truth and still follow my own path. I can still decide this is what I want to do. And in other cases, it kind of just depends on the scenario. Like, me saying that there's an objective truth doesn't mean that there isn't an objective truth for an individual scenario. I'm not saying that one truth applies to everything. Depending on the scenario, there could be an argument made for each individual truth. Now, with all this complexity, you might say, well, how do you know that you are spouting out the individual truth? Well, to be quite frank with you, I don't. I mean, I've made it really clear in, I think, my older videos when I started talking about topics like this, that I could be wrong. I could be wrong about a lot of stuff. I could be wrong even about the scientific stuff that I spent hours researching and making sure is scientifically accurate. I could be. I mean, that's just kind of part of not being an all-knowing being. I would kind of wish I was. That'd be cool. And I know the cloak kind of gives that impression. But really, I'm not. All we really can do is come up with the evidence, research, learn, continue to learn to support or debunk any philosophical ideas we think to be true or not. And then once we either support them, we can keep them, or debunk them, we can get rid of them and replace it with what we currently believe is more accurate, just like the scientific community, right? So take, for instance, the element thing. Back then, we used the best information we had to make these 4 elements. But as time went on, we discovered more elements. And when we discovered more elements, we debunked that and replaced it with the new elements. And then as we continued to run scientific tests and prove more and more elements, we continued to run with that. And that's how philosophy works. Even people who don't consider themselves a philosopher do this to some degree. Things that they thought were right as a kid, they might grow up and be like, yeah, maybe that's not so right, because they learned, they got more information, they were able to get more sociological experience, and they were able to compare the evidence and grow from there. Now, granted, it's a lot more complicated to support, prove an objective truth to any degree, because you really can't run an experiment on that kind of thing, but we still do it. That's what philosophy is. Philosophy is more or less the science of continuing to look for these kinds of answers. So, yeah, I might not know the objective truth, but I do believe there is one, and we can continue to better ourselves to try to look for it. And yeah, likely, realistically, we're probably never going to get to the point where we reach objective truth. It'd be cool if we did, but we probably won't. But we can always continue to try to get closer and closer and closer and closer to it. Just like in science, where realistically, we probably won't know everything. Right? There's a lot of stuff in the universe. The likelihood we will ever know everything in the universe, considering the fact that as far as we know the universe is infinite, probably not possible. But we can continue to get closer and closer and closer and closer to knowing more and more and more. So that would be my argument to objective truth. I hope you guys liked it. As I said, I'm an amateur in the field of philosophy, but I hope I was able to make a valid argument. And if you are also interested in this, I would just ask that if you have counter-arguments for whatever reason, I'm sure I don't need to tell you, just keep it civil. I know the internet's probably not going to listen to me, in which case I'm probably just going to ignore you. But as long as you keep it civil and respectful, I will hear you out by all means. What's that, Uku? Oh, okay. Alright, guys, I'm going to go. Uku seems to be very excited telling me about this other story involving space, and I'm rather interested as well. So with that, I will conclude this video. If you have any other ideas for videos I can make, leave it in the comment section below. Hit that bell button. I post every other week, and until next time, hear nothing and listen to all. Bye, guys.